We live. It's Wellness Wednesdays. Hey. Hey, y'all. It's Cherette. So I'm back for another Wellness Wednesdays. Hey. So today I am going to sit down and have a conversation. So I just got back in town from the beach. So I literally just pulled up an hour ago. So I was like, we can have a conversation instead of a demonstration today. Um, I have been personally on my health journey for about it's probably about 6 or 7 years now. And I want to talk about self observation. The reason why is because I've had different parts of my journey to health. And for me, self observation came up for health and spirituality. And I just learned about it probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago. But honestly, it's like the first step. And it's something that no one ever talked about to me. When I decided, hey, I want to be healthier, everyone was like, take action, just go do it, do it, do it, do it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get a gym membership and I'm going to smash it out in the gym. Arr. And for a while it worked. I lost weight. I felt better. My body felt better. But at the end of the day, my habits didn't change. I was still eating crazy. After I got tired, it was like, 6 months later or however long it took for me to start back eating cheeseburgers. So I believe we have this problem because there's this fad in today's society about health. When we talk about health, we automatically talk about changing something. And if you understand how the body and the mind works, typically when you change something, in order for it to hold in place, you have to understand it. So self-observation to me is one of the most essential, really it's a life skill. I mean, it's a life skill. You have to observe yourself, period. But when you're talking about health, it's like step number one. Um, I guess step number one is admitting you have a problem. But if you're talking about being healthier, then you're already there, maybe. So we won't argue about that. But what self observation is something that seems so simple and obvious, yet is such an unskilled and unpracticed thing to pay attention to yourself. And so when you observe yourself, you're basically observing your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. And we tend to live life in this autopilot mode, right? Like if someone says something to you, you just react and it is what it is, right? But when you're talking about life in general and health, being in a reactive state is not healthy and it doesn't allow you to change. So with self-observation, we're able to look at ourselves and become aware. The reality of the situation is that unless you know what you're doing, there's very little chance you can change it. So if you're overeating and you don't know why, or you don't even observe yourself overeating, and when you overeat, then there's very little chance that you can change your overeating. And so, like I said, self-observation can go into everything in life. You can use it for business, you can use it for relationships, for communication. But it's a simple act of just becoming aware so that you can do something different. So for me, I would call it a awareness practice where you just turn your attention inward. And a lot of the times when we do that, I think people like to call it constructive criticism. But I find that when we start talking about self observation, you start just observing yourself objectively. And here, the most important word is objectively. When you start to observe yourself, there's no need to have negative thoughts about it, you can just literally observe yourself. So to put an example out there, and I'm going to just use me because it's my health journey that I'm sharing. So I am healing my relationship with overeating. And I've been overeating since God. I think the first times I remember it was probably in middle school. I want to live. There's kids in the neighborhood. So I'm working. No, don't see. No, come on, stop. Excuse me, guys. There's kids in the neighborhood who's talking to me. So when I was overeating, I changed a lot of my habits. I started to not eat meat, or well, originally I started to eat like chicken breast, salads, then I went to not eating meat, and my journey continued. But I found myself binge eating on like raw salads. And and so I was like, gosh, I have to look at this because even though my diet is becoming better, my habits are still the same. So back in middle school, one of the first time I remember like binge eating was in middle school. I was the top seller in everything. Like if I was selling um, Girl Scout cookies or, I don't know, the popcorn things or, all of this. I was always the top seller. I was always getting my money. And I still am. Uh, so I was like the top cheesecake seller, right? And we sold all these cheesecakes. They were like delicious cheesecakes or something. They were called tasty cheesecakes. And my order, I had like 75 cheesecakes, right? And so I remember one of my first times like binge eating. I had sold all these cheesecakes and they were sitting at the house, and I just couldn't take it. I was like, I got to eat this cheesecake, right? So I went and got a cheesecake. It was like the multi cheesecake pack. So it had like the chocolate, the strawberry, And I remember opening it, and it was like God had sung out, like the angels had come. It was like, ah. And I opened the cheesecake and I taste one bit of it. And I remember something clicked in my mind, and I was like, I can't just have a taste. I have to eat the whole thing. I just got to eat the whole cheesecake. And I ate the whole cheesecake, y'all. Like it was a large cheesecake, and I ate the whole thing. And I remember how much pain I was in, like my stomach was hurting, and how many lies I had to tell. I had to tell so many lies. I told my mom that the cheesecake didn't ship out. I didn't know what happened to it. It was like all this stuff to just cover up my lie. So that was like one of the first times I remember binge eating. And so coming to current day, when I was like, I changed my diet, but I was still binge eating, it was the same thing. Like I started on the salad bowl, and I had that same thought like, oh, I can't just eat a little bit of the salad. I had to eat the whole thing. And I had made like a whole kale bunch with like all these things. It was like a ridiculously big bowl, and I still sat there and ate it. And so this was when I was like, okay, so even when my diet changed, I have to figure out why I'm binge eating. And my first step was really just looking at when I binge eat. And that always comes around for me when I'm pushed to a level of uncomfort. When I'm right on the cusp of when I'm going to succeed at something, or when my life is changing so that something can be better in my life. When I'm selling all the cheesecakes and I'm on top and everybody's like, oh, you're doing great. That's when I'm tripping out in my head. You know what I'm saying? That's when I'm binge eating. Current day life, my first event, I put on a plant-based food crawl, which was dope as fuck. I did my first event in 30 days. It was, oh my God, it was so stressful. But it wasn't the stress that made me overeat. It was the fear of being successful. And so instead of working through my fears, I just binge eat. It makes me feel better. because what I'm doing in the process of taking away from me being successful and me being scared to go to my next level, I hurt myself intentionally. And if anyone out there has ever binged eat, that shit hurts like a motherfucker. Okay, so it's like you just eat to the point where you're just like, oh, like the only relief is like to shit or throw up, and it's just horrible. But that's what I saw when I started to see myself. And all I did literally was every time I caught myself or catch myself, because I'm still working on it. I definitely have gotten better, but it's still something I work on all the time, which we'll get to the practice part later. But every time I overeat, I sit in the seat of consciousness and I watch myself and I watch my thoughts. I see what I'm thinking. And as I'm eating, like, your thoughts will literally reveal to yourself what you're doing. So this last time, the plant-based food crawl, I was overeating and I watched my thoughts. And as I'm eating, it's like, oh, I could never do this. Why would I want to even do this? Like, this thing is big. It could blow up. Like, why do I deserve this success? And as I'm thinking these thoughts, I'm just eating the whole bowl of salad. And it's just like, I've been full. But I didn't even at the time have the brain capacity to think about me being full and stopping, because my fear was leading me to hurt myself. And when I observed it, I was able to see it because I wasn't in autopilot. I wasn't just fearful and eating. So in self-observation, it's really an awareness practice. It's where you turn your attention inside and you just watch yourself. But the golden nugget here is that when you're self-observing, you have to be objective. You cannot judge yourself. You can't sit there and beat up on yourself. You just watch it. And as you're watching it, that's when your pattern will reveal itself. So it's like you kind of imagine that a very kind and gentle, neutral person has access to your inner landscape. And this is the person that's describing your thoughts, your sensations, your emotions, what's occurring within you, not your judgy ass self that you've been. Like when you look in the mirror, you're like, dang, I need to work on this. That person's not your self observer. The person who's your self observer is, and I like to think of too, like, if you have a sweet person in your life, like that person who's always sweet, a lot of it's our grandma, our big mom. Maybe it's your great grandma, somebody who could sit down and be honest with you, but in a very nurturing way. Like, maybe you're eating a little bit extra today, girl. Like, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? She wasn't the one, or he's not the one, calling you fat. He's just like, yo, you're eating extra. What's going on? So it's like having a conversation with yourself, but like through the eyes of that person who's loving, who's neutral, who's non-judgmental, so that you can see yourself objectively. So the task becomes to be conscious and aware and choosing your behavior rather than operating unconsciously. And the first step to that is to be conscious. And so here we go into the part where you have to start showing compassion. And I like to, when I talk about this, talk about a 3-year-old, right? So if you have a 3-year-old in your house and they walk past something and they drop the cup, right? And it spills juice or water all over the floor. A lot of the times, well, and I will say this, we all grew up different. We all react different. But if you're a healthy adult who teaches your child communication, you're not going to blow up on the 3-year-old. You're not going to be like, you're the worst 3-year-old I ever knew in my life. How stupid are you for spilling this cup? That is just stupid. You're not going to say that to a 3-year-old because they're a 3-year-old. So typically when the 3-year-old, takes the cup and it's spilled on the floor, you go, it's okay, baby. It's just a spilled cup. You know what I'm saying? We're going to clean it up. Is there anything going on? Did you have to go to the bath? You're going to try to figure out what's going on with them, why they spilled the cup, and tell them how okay it is that they just have to clean it up. You're going to be compassionate and loving to them because they're a 3-year-old. And so in my life, in order for me to be objective, I like to think of myself as like my 3-year-old self. A lot of the times when we get to be an adult, if we walk in the house and we walk past the cup and we spill it, our immediate thoughts is like, oh, I'm so stupid. How could I spill the cup? That's the internal talk, right? And so that is just as detrimental as your healing process, as your healthy lifestyle, as eating a steak or a burger. So without seeing where we are, seeing ourselves objectively, and understanding our thought process and what we're going through with our feelings, we can't change our actions. Because if you don't know that you're talking to yourself like that, you don't even know to be compassionate to yourself. You see? So I always like that internal talk to myself. I always like to talk to myself like a 3-year-old. Like if I mess up something, if I forget something, to just look at how I'm talking to myself and switch it to the 3-year-old. You know what I'm saying? And just be compassionate to myself and be objective. Now, in this process, I always like to talk about honesty. And the reason why is because I hear a lot of talk when we talk about health and mental health and wellness. It's a lot of talk about doing what feels good in the sense of not what feels good like our body feels good, but like what makes me feel good in the moment. For instance, like, if I feel something and I go and just if I overeat, like, oh, it's okay, that's just where I'm at, right? And so that is what we're doing when we start to look at ourselves objectively and self-observe. But we have to be honest in the sense of, okay, this makes me feel good, but what's the root of this problem? So in self-observation, a lot of the times when I started, I felt like I wasn't being honest with myself. I was just sitting back and I was watching it, but it's like, oh, I was just having a bad day. When really, if I self-observed and I saw my thoughts, when I started being honest with myself, it's because I was scared and fearful because I wasn't feeling worthy. So you get into your thought process. And I like to talk about honesty because a lot of what we're going through in our mind is not surface at all. Okay. But you have to be honest on a deeper level. Like when you're looking at yourself, what are you seeing? What are you really thinking? And sometimes in your honesty, you will find that you don't want to deal with it. It's not the time. And that's okay. That's okay. If you're honest with yourself, you observe something and you see it and you are objective and you don't judge yourself and you see it and you don't want to deal with it, that's okay. That's the act of just simply observing. And so as long as you're in that space of honesty with yourself, then you can just observe it and you don't have to do anything and you could just let it pass. And that's what it is. And the next time it comes up, maybe you'll feel different and maybe you won't. So sitting in that seat of honesty is like sitting with yourself. Like, am I ready to deal with this? Do I want to just observe it and let it go? And that's it. And that's fine. You can be there. But to be on a surface level and to just not deal with things or not observe them objectively because, like, I don't feel like this today or it's too hard, it almost defeats the practice work. And so when you start to do things like that, and when I say that, I mean self-observation, we have to realize that the practice itself is just like muscle work. Like you don't just go to the gym on the first day and pump out 250 pounds of iron. You have to maybe get a 3-pound weight. Maybe you have to work on lifting your damn arm without no weight. And we skip that part a lot of the times. Like when I got into the gym, I remember I was 350 pounds. And when I walked down the road, I could barely hold myself up. I would trip over things all the time. And I just wasn't strong enough to hold myself up and walk down the street. And one of my first trainers was like, you need to get on this iron and pump it, and I was trying to tell him, like, dude, I'm carrying around 350 pounds. I can't do that. And he pushed me to the point where I almost injured myself. When you're not ready, you're not ready. And so this goes into spiritual work, healthy work. If you observe yourself and you're honest and where you're at, you're not ready for it, that is okay. And again, be there objectively. Don't judge yourself. So just be honest about it, and sit there. So for me, I have a flow, and I actually got this flow method because it really resonates with me when I read it today. My friend posted it. But the flow is to notice it. So sit, observe it, self-observe. What are you going through? What are you feeling? And this is with anything. If you don't want to, if you do want to, for instance, get up early, right? And you set your alarm for 4:30 and the alarm goes off. What do you do? Just notice it. What does your mind say? Before you even go to bed, what are you thinking? You just notice it. And if that means when you get up, you still hit the snooze button 5 times, that's not productive. So that's okay. That thought is irrelevant. What are you doing? So when you hit that snooze button, what are you thinking? What's your body doing? What are you feeling? So you just notice it. Just notice it. If you want to change your habits on how you eat, when you go and you eat that whole bag of chips, just notice, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's going on? Just notice it. And then allow it to happen. That's the second part. We have to allow these things to occur because, like I was saying in the beginning of the video, if you don't understand it, you can't change it. So if you are not looking at yourself, self-observation through the process, meaning you're seeing yourself through the process of eating the whole bag of chips, or you're not observing yourself through the process of hitting the alarm clock 5 times and now you're late for whatever you're going to. You have to see yourself through the process. So not only self-observing your thoughts when it's happening, but allowing it to happen and seeing it, and then sit with it. What are you feeling? Like, I really have had to sit with my fear of success, and in self-observing myself, I now know I have to deal with my worthiness. It's a worthiness issue. Why do I not feel worthy enough to have success? I'm fearing the success because I don't feel worthy. And that's what, when I sat with it, that's what I, had to come to realize. Is like, I don't feel worthy. And once you realize it and you sit with it, honor that, honor it, wherever you're at right now, honor it. I honor the fact that I am fearful of success. And I also honor the fact that I am worthy of it. And I can sit right there with all of that. And when you're ready, after you honor it, when you're ready, you just let it go. You let it go. I read a book, which I love. It's called The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. If you guys sign up for the newsletter, I will make sure I put it in there. But there's a part of the book that talks about your thoughts and how we attach things to our thoughts. And so, for instance, if you have an ex and they have a red Mustang, every time a red Mustang comes by, your thoughts go straight to your ex. They're like, that good for nothing piece of shit, every time you see a Mustang. So in order to heal the thought process and our doing process, we have to make our thoughts like what he said, trees on the highway. Because trees, well, if you're ever on the highway, and you drive past a tree, you'll see that you don't attach thoughts to them. You're able to be like, oh, that tree's pretty. Oh, that tree's green. And then it just leaves, and then you never think about it again. And that's how we're supposed to have thoughts in our lives. You're not supposed to attach your thoughts to things. You can have these thoughts and let them just go and go and go. Just let it go. And so when you're ready in this thought process, you can then let it go. You observe it, you notice it, you allow it, you sit with it, you honor it, and you let it go. And that's the process. And you repeat that over and over again. And going back to what I was saying in practice is just like a muscle. So maybe one time you do it once a day, and then you tune into yourself twice a day, or maybe it's once a week. You start off small, but then you keep practicing it, and that's how it becomes a lifestyle or a habit. Dr. David Daniels, I was reading a quote. He said, self-observation never becomes habitual. It requires continuous practice. And I love that quote because it's very true. You know, every day you have to wake up and decide to watch yourself, observe yourself, see where you're at, sit with it, allow it, honor it, and let it go. You have to make the choice every single day. Everything you do, you have to make the choice. And so I like to talk about this process in health, but like I said, it can go with anything. If you're having trouble with your business, if you're having trouble with your partner, if you have negative thoughts towards anything, or you're trying to change anything, you want to change how you wake up, change how you eat, the first step is to observe yourself. And so I have resources that I like to use. And again, go to www.justtheletterbehealthynow.com, sign up and join the email crew, join the crew, and you'll get the show notes. And I'll put a lot of this information in this email. But the best resource I have had, hands down, to observe myself is a wonderful meditation course called Vipassana. Vipassana is said to be self-purification through self-observation. Self-purification through self-observation. Y'all, it was no joke. So for 10 days, you are in silence. There's no music, no writing, no books. You're just sitting with yourself and observing yourself objectively and letting that thing go. And through that experience, I have been able to thrive. I can't say I'm practicing it as much as I need to be, but that's okay. That's where I'm at. But it's something that I definitely recommend people to look into, especially if you're in. Last year, I was really depressed. I was in what I would consider a desperate situation, and that's why I reached out to Vipassana. And I can honestly say it's one of the things that changed my life. But it really shows you how to look at yourself and X out all of the noise. But that's an amazing resource. There's also a podcast I listen to called The Life Coach School by Brooke Castillo, and she's amazing. There's a lot of things in my life that I know about and I know the language, but she puts it into words that really resonate with me. Yoga has been really good to observe myself, observing the breath work. Some of my favorite is Kundalini yoga. If you have never heard of it, look into Kundalini. It's breath work. Well, it's more than breath work, but it's a form of yoga, and it really helps to tune in to the inners. A lot of Kundalini work goes with Tantra work. Maybe we'll talk about Tantra some other time. I'm really getting into that as well. But Kundalini is great for breath work and observing self, and also meditation. Now, Vipassana is a form of meditation. There's different forms of meditation. So if you tried meditating and it just didn't resonate with you, try it again. Also, Yoga Internationals has a free 30-day trial on their site. I have signed up for it and I love it. And it's really helping me to just bring it all in. They have different yogas and meditations that have really, really helped me here. I'm going through a big transition in my life right now, so I have had to revisit self observation, which is why I chose to talk about it today. So I hope that that is piqued the interest discussion for yourself with observing yourself. If you want to get healthy, I really, 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 really suggest that you start with just simply observing yourself. It will help you in the long run with choosing better foods to eat, getting more sleep, like everything you want to do to become healthier. Self observation is going to help you get there. So, if you guys have any questions for me, you can contact me. Go to my website, just the letter B, healthynow.com. Sign up for the email list. I will give you the show notes and resources there. And you can also ask me any questions if you have there as well. I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. It's sunny outside. So I've been sitting outside. I like this. When we talk, I'll be outside. I'll be back next week, of course, same time, same place. So I will see you then. I hope you guys enjoy the combo and talk to me. Tell me what you think about it. Comment on the video and let me know what you do to observe yourself and how it's been working for you and if it's been helping you make healthier choices in your life, because I know for me it has. All right, guys. Well, that is my time. I will see you guys next Wednesday for Wellness Wednesdays. See you guys. Peace.